You should probably buy cheap land.
People told me my land was worthless when I got it, but with time, it's pretty valuable now.
One of the best decisions I ever made was buying cheap land that pretty well nobody wanted. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't developed, well, and it wasn't expensive either. Because my land was affordable, I've been able to keep going. And I think that a lot of people get trapped trying to buy the perfect piece of land, when that might be what ends up costing you years of time and lost money. In 2020, when I decided to get land, perfect land was not even an option. I searched the entire United States looking for a piece of land that actually fit within my means. And what that did was made it possible so that I could afford to put in some infrastructure. I'd be able to afford the property taxes. I could afford to get started and still have a little buffer, just in case something went wrong. So I often tell people not to buy more land than they can afford to fence. And it has less to do with fencing and more to do with living within your means. If you can afford to fence the entire piece of property, then you can afford to maintain the property, you can afford to pay the taxes on the property, and you'll have that egg and maybe be able to start infrastructure such as shelter, water, food, power, and income. A lot of people mocked my decision to buy less desirable land. You can see, there's not a lot of foliage out here. It's pretty dry. But I did some, math before I came out here. I knew there was enough rainfall that I'd be able to harvest plenty of rain. I knew that I'd be able to add organic matter to the soil and improve it. And now, in this section, there's all kinds of grass that's popping up right now. While out on the pasture, where the horses are, they wiped it out and not much is growing there. But I've improved this soil over time, and it allows me now to grow a lot of different grasses, and there's even arugula all over my homestead now. So I was dealing with erosion right out the gate, where water just kind of runs through. I don't know if you can see, but there's a large pond right here now. I plan to put in another up there, and these are just for livestock, and it slows the water down from just rushing through the property. And I've got swells from the very front corner through this gate. These swells run all the way down to my pond. That slows down the water. They're kind of swells, kind of ditches, because while they're not at a steep grade, there's enough that the water can flow all the way to the pond. But every bit of this swell holds water for at least 6 months now, and there's all kinds of foliage coming up along the sides of it. By adding manure to the ground here, many times, I've covered it many times, and I've done it all the way down to around the entire cabin. Basically, this 1 acre that's fenced here, I've pretty well began to improve all the soil, and eventually I'll push it out onto the roughly 1.5 acres of pasture. From this angle, you might be able to see I've planted Bermuda grass in here, there's arugula in here, there's blue grama grass. I know it doesn't look like much, but this was completely bare just not too long ago. And there's even crimson clover coming up back behind the cabin. Horses have allowed me to harvest wheelbarrows and wheelbarrows of manure, and that's how I'm regenerating all this soil. I've never brought soil in from anyone. I've never brought in mulch, and while that would be a quick way to do it, I just always wanted to know if I could do this all by myself pretty much. And as much as I can possibly create from the homestead, I've always done that to the best of my ability. So anywhere there's a rain harvesting surface, I've built large water cisterns that are underground. They're real cheap and easy, and there's a lot of instructions on my website. If you just Google DIY underground cistern, it'll come up. You'll be able to see how I built them. They're cheap. And then none of this green foliage was here. This is from harvesting the water, slowing the water down, and allowing it to soak into my ground. Now I have a pond that there's a waterfall that goes up to the bog filter. Sorry, I'm running electricity over to the baby chicks just to keep them warm until it warms up a little more. This pond, you know, the waterfall runs 24/7, and there's a similar system in the aquaponics down there. And I don't water these plants. This is from the earth holding that ground, and you can see I've added manure on all of this area. Like I said, almost an entire acre is covered so that the soil will be improved upon. I've had trees that were a success for over a year, but then the wind killed them. And now I finally have put up some fence here, and I planted a tree on the inside. I think that tree will do just fine this time. The rest of my fruit trees are in the geothermal. Oops, there's a tree there. So we'll go take a look. Something I've noticed over time is that the internet seems to be selling the wrong dream to everyone. And so they make off-grid living a fantasy. They show expensive home builds that are going to put you into a lot of debt. And that might be fun, and while that works for some people, great. But there's a lot of us who didn't have a lot of money to start. And that's what this channel is all about, is helping people start out like I did with very little and build something with more structure and less pressure. Here's why this video matters for beginners, is I often get comments that it's just not possible to do this anymore. Land is too much money. What about healthcare? What about this and that? And the truth is, you can work with everything. If you need to get property that's just outside of the city, 10 minutes from the hospital, you can do that. If you want to create 100% of your income from your homestead like I do, you can do that. If you want to work a 9 to 5, you can do that. And if you want to have health care, you can do that as well. It's all possible. You just have to approach it slow and steady over time, step by step, calmly, and it'll add up and compound over time. The truth is, I didn't build this all overnight. This has been a 6-year process, step by step, and passes over time. And if you want to learn more about the system I've designed, you can learn all about it on my website, including the free guide.